Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. If you do any form of gardening or even just like to look at gardens and flowers, we have some tips for you today from our experts at the University of Vermont. And even though it's fall, there's still plenty to do and look for in gardens and landscapes. Joining me as they do each month are UVM horticulturist Leonard Perry and Ann Hazelrigg from the UVM Plant Diagnostic Clinic. Good to see you again.
Good to be back.
So the foliage is largely gone, unfortunately, but you know, not before we see lots of colors, and there are things that we love around bright colors in autumn. But Will Michael, our producer, talked to you about a plant that I was really surprised is invasive.
Yes, he asked about this plant, burning bush,
Sure.
which you see everywhere. It's funny, once he mentioned this, I started looking everywhere in landscapes.
Yeah.
It's bright red. You can't miss it.
Right.
Everybody kind of knows it because it looks like it's burning. But the problem is, we have a picture here. You see the bright red leaves, but it has these pretty orange seeds, which the birds like, and they get, and they drop all through native areas and woods, and then they grow, and these seedlings displace native vegetation, making it invasive. So in 21 states, it's really not supposed to be sold or planted. You still may see some of these about, but the best thing is not to plant these. If you do have one, I know a lot of people say, well, I haven't seen a problem and I really would like to keep the color, then prune it back in the spring when it comes out, the new tips, and you see the flowers, cut those off.
Right.
And then you'll have the pretty orange, pretty red foliage in the fall, but you won't
no
have
berries.
the seeds there and yeah, no berries. But there's some good alternatives. I brought a couple examples of those. Blueberries, that is one of the best. The highbush blueberry, and there's some nice cultivars. You see the bright red foliage. Some of mine that having smaller ones in pots. Fireball is a new cultivar, gets 5 to 7 feet. Toro, 4 to 6, Friendship 2 to 3, and Top Hat is one that only gets 1 to 2 feet high. That's great for containers, and those are all varieties with bright red foliage.
After you get the blueberries.
After you get the blueberries,
bonus.
so you've got win-win, and then there's a couple of others that people may not be as familiar with. The red vein Inchianthus, it's called, and that's only hardy to zone 5, so not the colder parts of the state. Has red persistent stems on it, and then it has reddish veins in the flowers in the spring.
You do have
a picture of that one, along with another one with it, the red chokeberry, which is native. It's hardy to zone 4, and that you see that one down on the right. So that would be a real good choice. It has white flower clusters in spring, and then the fruits are good for birds and jams. And again, those two are good ones with reddish foliage and not invasive. So there's many more lists on my website on an article, which we'll give at the end. Okay,
awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Leonard. And Anne, well, let's turn to the issues that people might have at the end of the season. So what do we watch out for?
Well, the Master Gardener Helpline has had a lot of calls lately on this invasive worm that probably showed up in Vermont in the 1980s. Came into the U.S. in 1937, I think they found it. It's an Asian snakeworm, and it's a very wriggly, jumping worm. And here's a picture of it right now. But
as long as your hand or something?
It's about 6 to 8 inches long at this point. But people are calling, I think it's being moved around in like bagged compost or mulch. It loves organic matter. So the next slide shows that the topworm is just our normal earthworm, but the snakeworm has a smooth white band around it that totally encircles the worm, and that's a very distinctive. That's how you can identify it, and plus it just wriggles and jumps like crazy.
Yeah, so why is this a problem?
Well, it's a problem because the worm feeds on the top layer of duff in the forest or feeds on mulch and can really change soil chemistry and really denude the landscape. So the landscape with all the leaves are where earthworms have not been. All earthworms are invasive, basically, because they were killed out during the glacier. So, but the picture on the right where there's not much understory, that's where the snakeworm has fed on all this organic matter in that top layer of soil. So they really change the soil chemistry, which ends up changing the plants that are in the understory.
Right, because you think of earthworms as a good thing, but
I know.
This is not okay.
I know, and so the other thing this earthworm does, and sometimes this is what people notice, is they produce a lot of castings, which are high in calcium carbonate, so they have they can raise the pH of the soil, they can make the soil dry out much quicker, so it's not a good thing.
Right, so what do you do? What do we do?
The problem is these worms, the good thing is that they will die over the winter. They don't overwinter here. So, but they lay these eggs or cocoons that are really small. They're about 2 to 4 millimeters in size, and there can be up to 10,000 of these per square meter. So we can maybe get rid of the worms, like pick them out of pots, and I know Leonard just said he had some, so you can get rid of the worms. But the problem is that you don't see these teeny weeny little cocoons that are going to overwinter, hatch in June, and repeat the cycle. So unfortunately, there isn't much we can do about it right now. It'd be nice to know. People can report it to us, the Master Gardener Helpline, let us know where they're seeing it. But I think if you get mulch or compost, bag compost, or just compost in bulk, look for these worms and
destroy them?
Yeah, destroy them.
Okay.
The other thing is that since they like mulch in gardens and they feed up in that upper layer, don't keep feeding them. Don't keep adding a lot more mulch.
Okay.
But we have a professor at UVM that's doing a lot of research on these worms right now, and Joseph Goraz, and he's trying to come up with some control measures, and we're not there yet, but people are working on it because this is going to be an expanding problem in the U.S.
Okay, wow. Well, back to some happier things. So
It's
Leonard,
got me thinking about my pots now. I got to go home and deal with it. So
we talked about harvesting garlic, and now's the time to plant it. What do we need to think about it?
Yeah, and most people are familiar with the garlic bulb, as it's called, with these raised areas, which are the cloves, which of course, you know, if you cook with garlic, we've tried several over the years. We've gotten down to now having music and German white. We like because they're big, big fat cloves. You don't need to peel a lot of them when you cook. But what you do when you plant, save a few aside, because garlic, that's a good way, or buy them locally. Not at the grocery store. Don't use those. But
not at the grocery store.
But a local source is best, because garlic tends to adapt over time to a local area.
Okay.
So try not to buy them from the West Coast, that kind of thing. You plant these about 4 to 6 inches apart, about 2 inches deep, pointed side up. Of course, in rows, and do the rows maybe 6 to 12 inches apart. Somewhere in there. Now's a good time to plant. Work in a lot of compost first, and then put maybe 6 inches of straw over it for winter. That's all you really need to do, and then it'll get set up, and next spring you'll see the shoots early.
A whole big one like this.
Yeah, and then it's amazing. One of these, we'll give you one of these, and that's got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nice fat cloves on it. So we had a good harvest this year. It's a good year for it.
Okay, awesome indeed. And you also brought bird feeders.
I did. Now's the time to think about birds. Birds need our help a lot, and a lot of people like to watch birds. Even if you don't garden much, we love to watch birds. This, if I had to get one, is my favorite. You could get it locally. You can buy them online. Red, blue, copper is what it comes in. You just lift this, and it says kind of stuck on there, but it comes up like so, and you put the seed in. In a wintertime when they're all feeding, maybe you get a day's worth of feeding out of that. The nice thing about it's got a wide rim on it, so little birds, big birds both like it. This is one of their favorite feeders. Now the other one they really like, especially the little birds, is the tube feeder. Now I've got a big one here. As you see, it's got 6 perches, so 6 birds, especially when there are a lot of chickadees or finches around. They love that. They're nice and wide. You see, there's not just a post, but so that a lot of birds, even the bigger birds, can get on it. The thing I like too, you can just twist this off the bottom, take the bottom off, and clean it. That's really important with these. One that you can have some sort of mechanism to get inside to clean it.
Sure.
It's really important, but they love the tube ones. I've got one even fatter. It holds like 3 times as much seeds, which I like for the winter. Don't have to fill it as much. So.
And squirrels.
Yeah,
may
squirrels
or
is-
may not get
Yeah,
into there?
probably don't get on that as much as they would this one, but birds do need our help. There's some studies you may have seen in the news recently, the Audubon Society and Cornell, so
Really
website
frightening.
there you can go to, but they have some really good tips, and just keeping your cats indoors is one. That's one of the biggest problems, birds flying into windows. Here's some protectors on their website. They have a list of really good ones that work, and things that I didn't know about, bird-friendly coffee. Most coffee we get comes from the migrating birds from clear-cut areas. They've
Right.
destroyed the migrating birds' habitat. So there are some suppliers that sell shade-grown coffee,
Right.
and I've started getting that myself. It's really good stuff from specialty growers, and the Smithsonian actually certifies bird-friendly coffee growers.
Right.
So there's a lot to
It's-
it that you can
it's
find
fantastic,
about.
and you can find that in Vermont,
you
which is fantastic.
Exactly, and so yeah, go to the Cornell and Audubon websites for that.
Okay, just a short period of time, but one other thing that Anne, you wanted to bring in.
Yeah, people are calling a lot about these home invaders that come in the fall. A couple that we have a picture of are box elder bug and the Asian multicolored lady beetle.
Okay.
And we have a great slide of that. They congregate on southwest sides of houses where it's warm. They're just looking for a sunny spot, and then they want to come into your house to overwinter. They don't hurt anything, but if you squish them, they might smell.
Okay.
They can
So-
leave droppings, but just try to caulk things.
Okay.
Don't need to use a pesticide. Just
Okay,
vacuum
not a
them
real
up.
problem. Vacuum
No.
them up. Okay, so if they want more help, how do they
Yeah,
reach the
Master Gardener Helpline is a great resource. Call us.
And Leonard, your website has
Yeah,
lots of
Perry's
tips.
Perennial pages,
Okay.
perrysperennials.info.
You guys are awesome. Many thanks to Leonard
you.
Perry and Ann Hazelwood for coming in, our UVM specialists. And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.